Sorry, bell rang right as I started to record. Okay, so we are doing 3-4, which is reciprocal functions. So this is where your snowman lab will come in very useful because we are doing more than just finding sine and cosine. We have to find the reciprocal. So if you remember, reciprocal means the flip. So there are 3 other functions we haven't even talked about. We've talked about sine, cosine, and tangent. We have not talked about secant, cosecant, and cotangent. So there are 3 other ones, but they are just the reciprocals of the ones that we know. So you just have to remember which ones go with which. So if you remember that cosecant goes with sine, then all you have to do is find the sine and flip it. So secant is written SEC, and it is the reciprocal of cosine. Okay, so if you are being asked to find the secant of 30, you would find the cosine of 30 and then flip it over. Cosecant, CSC, is the reciprocal of sine. So again, you would just find the sine and then flip it. So cosecant goes with sine, and cotangent goes with tangent. The easiest way that I can help you remember that is that every pairing needs something with a co. Okay, so tangent goes with cotangent. That one's easy. Sine goes with cosecant because sine doesn't have a co in its name already. So it needs a co, so it goes with cosecant. Whereas cosine already has a co, so it just goes with regular secant. Okay? All of the signs are the same because if you flip something, it doesn't change its sign. So if sine was positive in the quadrant you're in, then cosecant is positive in that quadrant as well. Okay, so you don't have to worry about positives and negatives, especially if you have your snowman lab, because you can just find the original sine or cosine and then flip it. Okay, so the cotangent of 60. If you have your snowman lab, this should be simple, so I'm not going to take a really long time figuring out cotangent, tangent, all that stuff. Cotangent of 60, so I'm going to find the tangent of 60 first. You have your snowman lab, your tangent of 60 is the square root of 3. So put it over 1, and then you are going to flip it, because that's what you have to do for your reciprocal functions. So you flip it and you get 1 over the square root of 3. We know we cannot leave it like that, so you rationalize your denominator and you end up with the square root of 3 over 3 as the cotangent of 60. So we found the tangent and you flip it. This one was a little bit more difficult because you had to rationalize your new denominator, but it's not anything you don't know how to do. Okay? So cosecant of pi, first of all, we know that pi is 180 degrees, so let's just go with that. Cosecant already has a co, so it has to go with sine. So I'm going to find the sine of 180. The sine of 180 is 0. Put it over 1, because any whole number gets put over 1. And you flip it, because we're doing the reciprocal function, and we get 1 over 0. You cannot have a 0 on the bottom. If you get that, then it is undefined. So if you get something that originally is 0, then the reciprocal function is undefined. So the cosecant of 180, or pi, is undefined because the original had the 0 on the top, was 0, so when you flip it, the 0 goes to the bottom. Okay, secant squared of 150. Don't worry about the squared quite yet, but secant goes with cosine because it doesn't have a co already. So cosine of 150. Cosine of 150 degrees is negative radical 3 over 2. Again, use your snowman lab. Then you are flipping it, which gives you negative 2 over the square root of 3. Now, hold off for a second. Typically, we would rationalize the denominator and get negative 2 root 3 over 3. But we're looking for secant squared, so it's actually causing us way more work to do that, because if I square this, it's going to get rid of any square roots anyway. So the fact that I was looking for cosecant squared means I don't have to worry about rationalizing the denominator. Once I flip it, I can just square it, and 2 squared is 4. Negative 2 squared is 4, and radical 3 squared is 3. So that is the secant squared of 150. So again, I found the cosine, flipped it, and then squared it. Okay, so these are evaluating. We've done evaluations before. I'm going to start by finding its other, like, parent function. So the tangent of negative 30. Okay, negative just means it dropped down into the fourth quadrant. So a tangent of 30 is radical 3 over 3. So it's just going to be negative because we're in the fourth. So negative radical 3 over 3. Flip it because we really wanted the reciprocal function, so we have negative 3 over radical 3. Typically, I would rationalize it, but it's being squared, so I just square it right now, and I get 9 over 3, or 3. So the cotangent of negative 30 squared is 3, okay? Now I'm going to move over here because I'm going to eventually end up adding it to whatever I get from the secant of 315. Secant doesn't have a co already, so it has to go with cosine. So the cosine of 315 degrees is the square root of 2 over 2. But I want the secant, so I have to flip it. So that gives me 2 over radical 2. This one was not squared, so I do need to rationalize my denominator. So multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 2, which gives us 2 root 2 over 2. And then the normal 2's just cancel. So the secant of 315 is the square root of 2. So plus the square root of 2. You cannot add normal numbers and radicals. Okay, they're like trying to add 3 and x. So that's just going to be your answer. 3 plus the square root of 2. Okay? And that's it. All right, you have 3, 4.